It has been 0 days since Xbox has been slogged in the headlines.
I got something to say, but I'm going to write most of it in an article today. But let's just say, I assume you're referring to this 30% profit
Yes.
margin nonsense. Not an accountant, right? Not a financial officer of any kind. I guess I technically own my own business, which I'm doing everything I can to drive right into the ground. But right now, I'll just say arbitrarily deciding that every business within your company has to meet some arbitrary profit margin when there's data about the history of the business, but also just the history of the video game business in this case. And the margins are much lower. And this is a business that could be profitable and still not cause its fans to hate it every day. And they have apparently gone in a different direction. And I don't like it. You know, Microsoft's quarterly earnings are next week on the 29th, which I think is Wednesday. And, you know, they're going to be doing great, but we're also going to have to endure another episode of the Amy Hood Show where she just shuts down whatever Satya Nadella is saying to analysts on the call because she's the only one there who knows what the hell's going on. And I'm starting to question things. Yep. It's like, you mean to tell me this thing would be fine, didn't have to do any of that nonsense you did this year, but we're trying to edge that thing up by 10 percentage points.
Well, it's more than that, because according to, I think it was the FTC documents, like their gross margin or their margin was like 12% typically.
Yeah, but here's the thing. To kind of make the comment I made earlier a little more granular, within the Xbox business, within Microsoft Gaming, I should say, there are sub businesses. I don't know what to call these things, business groups, whatever. There's the group that makes the consoles and other hardware and things like that. There's the online services stuff, and obviously all the game studios and everything that goes into that. Those are very different kinds of businesses, and they should all have different expectations for profit margin or whatever margin you want to look at, profitability, et cetera, whatever. The way this market has worked historically for all companies that make consoles is you lose money, at least in the beginning, on that thing, because you're making it up in the profits from games, typically, in the licensing that goes, you know, with that. And like I said, arbitrarily, you could apply it at the macro, micro level, however you want to put it, but like applying this bizarre number to every slice of a business, to me, is just, doesn't make any sense. And, you know, more important, I think, is just the overall, whatever it's called. Is it Microsoft Gaming or whatever that business is, Activision, whatever. It's not like Windows. It's not like Surface. It's not like anything. It's not like Azure. It's not, it's not like SQL Server. It has its own little thing going on, I don't get it.
But it's got to be 30%. So
yeah, just like Apple's fees, like and for the same reason, completely arbitrary. It's just why.
Yeah. One of the interesting things I think about this whole, the news is not surprising, right? It's not. But I think the reality here, at least from my perspective, is that it solidifies what we kind of expected and thought was happening, right? So they come out and say, this is the mandate, this is what's going on.
We've said this literally. It's very clear Amy Hood has cast her eye of Sauron on that part of the company and said, you need to, make some changes here to be more profitable or whatever.
But I think the potential more interesting point is that Phil Spencer has been on the receiving end of a lot of blows, right? People are saying, fire the guy or whatever. I tend to believe that he might be the last bastion of any soul within Xbox. And if he was kicked out or if he left,
it would nosedive immediately.
It would be just a robot Borg that says 30%. Okay. And then
I completely agree. Yep. No, this is the thing when people have said, because people have said this, do you think they get rid of Phil Spencer, whatever. It's like Phil Spencer answers to a higher power, man. And let me tell you, the guy, I'm not saying he doesn't care about money. I'm not saying he doesn't understand or that's not his whatever, but he cares about games. He wants games everywhere. He wants as many games everywhere to be everywhere. And he's been very consistent on this. And it's been obvious this whole time when this stuff happens. It's not him. Technically every human being in any company answers to somebody, right? Even Satya Nadella has a board of directors and shareholders and whatever customers, right? That, it's not very direct, but he answers. Phil Spencer was the one who went to if not the board of directors, the senior leadership team, I don't remember, and wanted to do essentially what Asus is doing now with the ROG Xbox Ally. And they were like, no, you're not doing it. And that's why they had a partner, I obviously they wanted to come out first to market with an Xbox in-house, thing. And they were just like, no. So look, maybe they were right to say no. Their hardware isn't exactly on gangbusters, but that's the point is only that's where the decision is made. Like they have ideas, they might want to do them, but they still have to, they can't. I don't know. It's like, like we all have like a spousal referral number. Like if I spend like a couple $100 on something, I could probably get away with it, but it's for $1,000. We have to start having a conversation, that kind of thing.
I don't know.
Bigger numbers at Xbox, but but same theory.
Yep. The thing that's in the back of my brain that I wonder now, what changes going forward? Like, are we through the worst? It seems like we're. I say this
wait 2 weeks. Seriously, this is the problem because we always think this. We're like, all right, this is terrible.
Yeah, they cut all the studios. They kicked out those games. That's
laid off a bunch of people, whatever it is. And you're like, all right, this is it. And then 2 weeks go by and you're like, nope, that wasn't it. So I hope you're right. I mean, so let me ask you, because people don't know, Brad is a little better with numbers than I am. With like accounting type things, money, whatever. I mean, so like, what do you think of this 30% thing? Like, what's your take from this? Like,
part of me, it's hard without knowing real numbers, which is a real thing, right?
Yeah.
If they are at 28% and Amy's like, hey, you got to get to 30 from this, because they don't even use gross margin, they have this accountability margin or whatever. So we don't know that number to start with. If it's 28 and they're like, hey, you got to get to 30, like that's okay. That is like a reasonable business expectation to grow. But if they were at,
they're not. I don't think they're at 28. That's the problem.
No, I don't think so. But if they were legitimately at 12 and they're like, hey, you got to get to 30, or we're cutting and I'm going to do all the layoffs.
Pretend they did not buy Activision Blizzard, right?
Yeah.
So you've got this fairly simple business by comparison. There's a hardware component. There's
how profitable was Activision prior? They were
pretty profitable.
So
I'm sorry. Was it 30%? No, it was not 30%.
Which is part of the problem.
But that was my point up front. Like the video game industry is what it is, and that business in particular has a couple of really big blockbuster games that have, are billions in investment and then billions in earnings. But I don't
when I hear 30%, especially coming from Microsoft and knowing what I know about other software industries, 30% is like a software margin. That is like what you get in the software industry.
Thank you.
But not the game industry.
This was the central insanity of Windows as a service. Was you're going to take this thing that is not a service and you're going to try to service it, meaning update, get it up to date all the time, and do that somehow reliably using a product line that dates back to the 1980s and is full of just hairy code and whatever. And then it's the same thinking. You're applying like this thing that makes sense over here to something that does not make sense over here. I'm trying to find this set of numbers. There was a from a court case of some kind. There was a for 3 years, and this is several years ago now, but they had the numbers for Call of Duty. Like, this is how much it cost them to make this game, and this is how
it was
much
like
they
300
made.
million,
Remember that?
and then
Yeah. So one of the first of the three was one of those Modern Warfare remakes, and that one went gangbusters. It cost a lot to make, but billions, right? And then the next two, whatever they were, it was probably a Black Ops in there, and maybe the other Modern Warfare, I don't remember, but cost more to make, but made less, right? Because that's what happens, right? Sometimes. But I'd like to see those numbers because I want to it's one game. It doesn't encompass the whole business, but like what's the profit margin on Call of Duty? I bet it's not 30%, not these days.
Here's the thing I can't remember, and you've played Call of Duty as long as I have. Prior to Microsoft owning them, did they have all the stupid skins? They definitely had skins. Not discounting that.
Right.
But like put this 30% into perspective. Now, with Call of Duty, and you're sitting here thinking, okay, they've had it for 2 years or whatever they've had, and Microsoft mandates 30%. It's like, how are we going to do that? Well, we did this one skin and it generated that. We could do one of those per quarter. We'll know that will generate this. That'll help us out. And so that's how Call of Duty gets rammed into the ground.
So there is a huge certification going on with this game right now.
Oh yeah.
That if you're not playing it, you don't maybe understand. It is what you just said, but it's also more than that, because you can't start the game without going into some full screen Vegas announcement about something you can buy, and it's actually starting to get as busy and annoying as Call of Duty Mobile, which is a game that you just get for free, and then they're relying on in-app purchases, right? And it's look, we went through the whole loot box phase. Call of Duty was absolutely part of that, and they kind of gave it. I think maybe it seemed a little too much. I don't know what it seemed like, but it seemed like loot boxes became a problem. Maybe it was a legal thing in Europe or something. But this is it. This is 2.0. Like, if you, I'm not joking, but I kind of joked about this on Windows Weekly. I think you and I talked about this. Like, the big advantage, maybe the only advantage, the big advantage of the console is if you leave it on whatever power management mode, it will actually download updates overnight and stuff. And then most times you can probably just start the game and play. Whereas on the PC, every time I'm kind of crossing my fingers, like, is this thing going to start? Or we're going to have to download a 200 gig update? Because it's some of that nonsense you're talking about is where that stuff gets delivered, right? And yeah, it's bad enough. No, it's not bad enough. It's terrible. It's a nightmare that I'm playing in these games where people with like giant Beavis and Butthead heads are running around, and and then now we've got like the Chucky characters, like the boy Chucky and the girl, whatever the Jennifer Tilly thing was. What is this game again? Like, what am I playing? I didn't look at Fortnite or something. Like, yeah, I guess I know going in, this is what I'm getting. But like, if you're going to do nonsense like that, that should be a thing over on the side, like Warzone is. Like, you don't put that in these are core multiplayer deathmatch things. I feel like they don't know what the hell they're doing. It makes no sense.
They're just trying to make money, but more so than they're already making from the battle passes and everything. It's a vicious cycle that they're in, because now next year or whatever, they're going to look at a prior year comparable. It's like, well, why do we make so much more money in Call of Duty last year? It's, well, we were selling that stupid skin. Well, I guess we got to do something.
I can't say I liked it exactly, but back for some period of time, you'd buy the game. It was like $60. And then there were like 3 or 4 of these kind of DLC drops over the course of the year, new multiplayer map skins, different whatever, all the stuff that went into it. And then there was a period of time, remember, there was like a pass. You could be like, all right, $60 for the game, $60 for the DLC. You pay it up front. And then as the year goes on, you get all that stuff. Like, as it comes out, you just get it. And I always did that because I was always going to buy it anyway. And it was probably a little cheaper to buy it all at one time, whatever. But I'm basically spending $120 a year to play Call of Duty. And really $240 a year because my son's also playing it at the time, right? And to me, that seems like a good business model for them. Make something that people want to play, charge the money that they're okay paying because they want it that bad, and enjoy the game. And now it's like I'm fighting through things to get to the game, or I'm in the game and I'm fighting my mentalness because I want to murder, because these stupid things are running around like cartoon characters.
Wait for a Battlefield free weekend, and then you'll need to play. The problem with
I
switching over to
know,
Battlefield
I
is
know.
that it's, in comparison to playing Call of Duty, it's harder because it's a
Yes.
slow. It's not necessarily
No, I know.
slower.
It's just different. That's
It's
the only,
just
it's different.
it's just different, but it's
Yep.
not bad different though.
I will say they got the core controls and playability stuff right in the
Yeah.
sense that if you come from Call of Duty, which
Oh yeah.
a lot of people will.
There's a couple. If you ever do this, I will tell you what to change. There's a couple you can.
Yeah.
The nice thing about the game is you can change anything. So if you don't
Yeah.
like where a button's mapped, you just go in the settings and be like, just change it.
Right.
There's tons of options. So
This is something you don't play with a controller, do you? Or do you?
I do.
You do. Oh, of course. Well, you're playing on console. So
Yeah.
one thing you wouldn't have ever seen, I will never make sense of this. Like I'll bring up Call of Duty on some computer I haven't used before or whatever. I have a controller that I connect to it either with a wire or through Bluetooth. Call of Duty starts. It senses the controller. So it's like, you're going to use the controller. Nice. So a game starts. And so, you go to move forward. And what happens is, I got to think about how this works. The movement stick, which I guess is the left one or whatever, works fine. But you can't look around with the other stick because the look thing is tied to the mouse. And I'm trying to understand the human being that uses a controller and a mouse. It's not possible, but that's how it's set up. And this is every single time. This is not, I didn't happen one time and I will never forgive them. It happens every time. Every time I set it up for the first, if I don't think to go into quick settings controller and be like, look under, the first thing, it's like, look around with the mouse. Why would, no, do not look around with the mouse. This is stuff like that. Like they have millions and millions of players. They have all this feedback. They know what people like. They know what they don't like. They do not care. And I don't know what's happening. It's just so crappy. It's bad enough that this game is problematic to begin with, but now it has, it's getting worse.
You need your accountability margin.
We need a word for things that get worse in our industry.